The worst betrayals never come from enemies. They come from people who know exactly how to smile when they say something meant to destroy you. Maybe it's better if you skip Mom's party this year, Rachel said lightly, licking foam off her perfectly manicured nail. It's not really your kind of place. I sat across from her in a noisy cafe 2 blocks from my old office, the office I'd quietly been laid off from 6 weeks ago. The irony? She picked the spot. Said it was convenient. For her, not me. I'd just come from a food delivery shift. My black sneakers were scuffed, and my thrifted wool coat carried a smell of rain and asphalt. My kind of place? I echoed. I kept my voice even. I never flinch. Not with Rachel, she shrugged, leaning back in her seat like we were just 2 friends catching up and not 2 sisters orbiting a collapsing star. It's just going to be really elevated. It's not personal. You've got a lot going on right now, and honestly, I think it might be better if you just sat this one out. She looked at me, not with cruelty. That would have been easier. It was pity, casual and condescending, the kind rich people give out like party favors. I knew that look. She used it on servers when they refilled her wine. Too slowly. I smiled. Sure. That one word was a scalpel. It sliced clean through the pretense, left no blood, just space. She didn't notice. She nodded like she'd done me a favor, but let me tell you a secret, when a woman like me says, sure, after being told she's too poor to celebrate her own mother, she doesn't mean, I agree. She means, thank you for the last nail. I'm Natalie Chen. I'm 34 years old. I used to work in corporate marketing until my company downsized and offered me a severance package wrapped in empty sympathy. Since then, I've been doing delivery work, burning through savings, and pretending the foundation beneath me wasn't cracking, but I wasn't drowning. I was observing, because there's a difference between being broke and being broken. Rachel didn't know that. As she kept talking, about guest lists, centerpieces, menu tastings I clearly hadn't been invited to, I studied her. Her gold hoops, the Cartier watch I recognized as a hand-me-down from Dad. She'd always worn wealth like armor, even when it wasn't hers, and then, halfway through her latte, she slipped. You don't have to worry about the dinner bill, she said breezily. It's all taken care of. I tilted my head. By who? Oh, she blinked, 1 beat too long. Well, Mom and Dad helped. And I used? I think your Amex was still on file from that gift last year? Just a deposit. I said nothing. My Amex? I never gave her access to that. At least not recently, but she smiled like this was normal. Like using my name, my credit, my silence, that was part of the family package. Later that night, I opened my banking app and checked. A $3,000 transaction had been authorized 3 days ago to a venue called Ember Plus Sage. And the email linked to the booking? My full name. My account. But not my signature. So that's how it was going to be. They were throwing Mom a 60th birthday dinner. 40 guests. Premium menu. Custom florals. And they were doing it under my name. With my money. But I wasn't elevated enough to attend. It wasn't a mistake. It was choreography, and suddenly, 100 moments from my childhood made more sense. The year I skipped prom to work a weekend job and Rachel borrowed my dress. The time I bought Mom a new phone and Rachel bragged about gifting it. The emergency dental bill I paid for Dad that mysteriously reappeared on Rachel's Instagram, tagged, thanks to me. It had always been like this. I paid. They applauded her. The next morning, I drove across the city to Ember Plus Sage. I walked in with clean hair, pressed slacks, and the kind of calm that makes people nervous. I'm here about a reservation, I said. The manager pulled up the record. Natalie Chen? Yes. He smiled. Looks like everything's set. Final confirmation went out this morning. Cancel it. He blinked. I'm sorry. There was fraud involved, I said. I'm handling it. I pulled out my ID. My bank printouts. The name match. The timestamps. It didn't take much. People like me are usually invisible until we demand not to be. He frowned, but nodded. Understood. Should we notify the other contact? I looked him dead in the eye. No. Let them show up. Let them find out. That night, I received a text from Rachel. It was just a selfie of her in a dressing room, trying on a metallic cocktail dress. Too much, winky face. I didn't reply. I saved the image. For evidence. Or for memory. I hadn't decided yet. The day of the party, I sent a final email to the venue, CCing my lawyer friend Mia, not to take legal action, yet, but to leave a digital trail. I didn't need court. I needed proof. Paper is power when people lie for sport. That night, they arrived at Ember Plus Sage expecting champagne flutes and gold foil menus. Instead, they were greeted by a hostess with an apology and a locked ballroom. I didn't go. I stayed home, lit a candle, and opened a bottle of $10 wine. The kind Rachel would call gas station juice. I drank it slowly. With ceremony, around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed. Rachel, what the hell did you do? I turned off the screen. I in that silence, I heard something I hadn't in months of myself, breathing. The world didn't end. No lightning struck. I just stopped letting them spend me like currency, but the best part wasn't the cancellation. It was what came next. Something she never saw coming. A friend of a friend. An unexpected email. A tiny breadcrumb that, at first, I ignored. But sometimes, the truth doesn't knock. It sneaks in through the cracks, wearing your name like a costume, and when it does, you learn just how long the performance has been running. It's funny how quiet betrayal can be. It doesn't arrive screaming. It slips through door cracks, wears your clothes, uses your name, then smiles at you like nothing happened. The next morning, after Rachel's casual erasure of me over oat milk, I sat at the edge of my bed, my fingers still curled around the phone. Not in rage. Not even disbelief. Just a stillness so sharp it hummed. I replayed her voice in my head, not the words, those were expected, but the tone. Light, breezy, designed to make me feel like the decision was mutual. Like she hadn't just told me I was too poor to exist in her version of reality. The thing is, this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time I listened. In our house, Rachel was the beam everyone angled their lights toward. I was the scaffolding. When she failed her first year of college, I took a second job to help cover her summer classes. When she crashed Dad's car, the insurance mysteriously fell on my policy. When she forgot Mom's birthday one year, I sent flowers with her name on the card. It was always like that, until I forgot myself. That day, I logged into my banking portal, expecting to see the usual stack of minor transactions, groceries, gas, a hopeful PayPal deposit from a freelance gig. What I found instead was a charge I didn't recognize. $3,000. Ember plus Sage. 2 days ago. My name. My card. My account. I stared at it. Blinked. Refreshed the page. Still there. The email confirmation was sent to my Gmail, but forwarded from another address. An auto rule. Rachel's doing. It wasn't just thoughtless. It was practiced. I opened the detailed billing page. There were names. Menu selections. A custom monogram cake. Chen 60 embossed in gold. There were seating arrangements for 42 guests. None of them mine. I paused when I saw the signature. It was a scribble, nothing like mine. But just enough to pass on a blurry screen. I clicked back and dug deeper. And that's when I saw it, 2 more charges. One for a catering deposit. One for an event planner retainer. Both within the same 72 hours. All under my name. But I hadn't authorized a single one. That was when I stopped being shocked. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't angry. I was awake. I pulled out an old shoebox from under my bed. It held receipts, contracts, the quiet proof of every time I'd stepped up while she floated. There was the tuition invoice from 5 years ago with my name on the payment line. The rent check I wrote for her after her business venture failed. The Venmo screenshots. The emails. Back then, I thought I was helping. I thought love looked like sacrifice. I didn't realize I was building her pedestal with bricks made from my spine. This wasn't generosity. It was currency. And they'd spent me thin. I left my apartment, heart steady, hands dry, and took the train to my parents' neighborhood. Not to see them. Not yet. Just to walk. To feel the pavement. To remember what silence felt like before it became survival outside. Their home, the lawn looked the same. Trimmed. Predictable. But there was a new car in the driveway, sleek, matte black. I remembered Rachel posting a story a week ago about upgrading her ride. She never mentioned whose name it was under. I opened my phone, typed in my credit report access code, and scrolled. 3 hard inquiries. 1 new account, open 2 weeks ago, mailing address, 48, Garrison Avenue. My parents' house. I called the number on the card. Posed as myself. They verified the address. The balance? Already over $5,000. Merchant codes, floral, event design, boutique apparel. They hadn't just stolen my name, they were dressing it up and parading it down aisles. I wasn't allowed to walk. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I thanked the operator, ended the call, and took a long breath. And then, I walked to the corner, found the nearest coffee shop, sat down, and ordered nothing. Just SAT.AT. That moment, a notification buzzed on my screen. It was a message from Mom. Don't forget, your sister's doing so much for us this week. Be kind. Be kind. Like she hadn't gutted me with a smile. I read the message again. And then again. Until its meaning inverted. Until it stopped sounding like advice and started sounding like warning. Later that evening, I met up with Mia, my former colleague and one of the few people I trusted. She opened a credit account under your name, she said slowly, reading the documents I'd printed. That's identity fraud. Not gray area. Criminal. I nodded. I know. And the family's in on it? I paused. She used their address. They signed for deliveries. No one told me. She leaned back, exhaled. You're going to file? Not yet, I said. But I will. Why wait? Because if I'm going to end this, I said, folding the papers carefully, I want the whole thing to fall at once. Quietly. Strategically. And permanently. Rachel always thought silence meant weakness. She never learned that silence is where strategy grows. Hamia handed me her card. You'll need a timeline. Start documenting now. No emotion. Just facts. That night, I opened a new file on my laptop. I named it Accounts. Line by line, I logged every transaction, every date, every quote Rachel had ever dropped about money or status or needing a little help. Every time Mom said, "You're the strong one." Every time Dad laughed. Off a concern with, "She's your sister." But the most damning entry wasn't financial. It was a voicemail from Rachel, left on my birthday last year. Hey Nat, I know you don't like surprises, but I'm planning something for Mom soon. I might need to use your info just for now. You know, to get things done faster. You're a lifesaver. I'd saved it. Because even then, something in me knew. I didn't reply. Didn't confront her. I just started looking, and now? Now I had enough, not for revenge, for clarity, because sometimes the only thing more dangerous than a woman betrayed is a woman who finally knows the value of her own name. The invitation didn't come. Of course it didn't. I watched Rachel post about it on Instagram instead, a blurry photo of champagne flutes, gold-tipped menus, and a caption that read, "Big night for the best woman I know. Hashtag Mom deserves everything." No tag. No mention. Just 100 likes and 3 heart-eyed emojis from relatives who never remembered I existed unless something needed fixing. They assumed I wasn't coming. More importantly, they assumed I couldn't. That's what made it so easy for them to write me out of the picture they painted. I wasn't a person to them. I was a placeholder. A resource. A name to sign checks with, but I still had one advantage. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd swallow it again. I'd done it for years. But not this time. At 5 p.m. sharp. I left my apartment wearing black. Not a dress, slacks, shirt, trench coat. Not mourning. Not blending. Just intentional. Controlled. I walked the 3 blocks to Ember Plus Sage with a binder tucked under my arm. Not because I needed the papers in it. I already knew every line by heart. I brought it because sometimes people respect print more than memory. Inside the restaurant, the hostess stood at her station, fingers flying across a tablet. She looked up when she saw me. "Miss Chen?" "Yes." Her expression shifted from polite to cautious. "You're here early. Everything's been handled." I nodded. "Perfect. I'll wait here." She hesitated. "You're not going to the ballroom?" "No," I said. "I'd rather greet them here." She blinked again but didn't argue. Smart girl. At 6:50, the first wave arrived, Mom's friends, mostly. Women who wore pearls with sneakers and called each other honey like it was currency. They looked surprised to see me. One waved uncertainly. I didn't wave back. At 7 o'clock, my parents pulled up. Dad in a navy suit he only wore for family photos. Mom in emerald green, her favorite color, the one Rachel always borrowed and claimed looked better on her. They entered, faces lit with pride and pretense. Then, they saw me. And paused. "Natalie?" Mom asked, smile stiffening. "Hi," I said. "Nice night for a party." She looked around. "We're a little early, aren't we?" I nodded. "Just in time." Then Rachel entered. Her dress was silver. Sharp-shouldered, perfectly tailored. Her hair was pinned in curls I knew took at least an hour and a half. She carried herself like a nominee. Until she saw me, the flicker was so fast most people would miss it. But I didn't. "Natalie," she said. "What are you?" I gestured. Calmly. "You should talk to the hostess." The woman stepped forward like we'd rehearsed it. "Actually, Miss Chen," she said to Rachel. "There seems to be a problem with your reservation." Rachel's smile twitched. "What kind of problem?" "The ballroom's been released. The booking was cancelled." "That's impossible," Rachel snapped. I confirmed it myself. "With which email?" I asked. "Because the one on file belongs to me. The card, too." She blinked. "You cancelled the entire event?" Mom asked, stepping forward. "I cancelled the booking made under my identity, with my money, from my account," I said. "That's all?" I did. "But we have guests," Dad said, suddenly alert. "We've got 40 people coming." "No," I interrupted. "You have 40 people expecting a party paid for by someone you didn't invite." Rachel stepped closer, voice low. "You're making a scene." I leaned in. "Not yet." A few guests trickled in behind them, confused by the stall. The hostess stepped aside discreetly. Rachel turned to her. "Can we speak to the manager?" "You already have," I said. He's the one who processed the fraud alert yesterday. I filed it under my name. Legally, it was the right thing to do. You're insane. I let that sit, then Mom spoke. Soft and furious. You're humiliating us. No, I said. You did that yourselves. I'm just removing the mask. Rachel reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and started tapping furiously. I knew she was texting Dad, Mom, maybe even the planner, trying to salvage something. But she didn't know the planner already knew. I'd spoken to her too. She was kind. Surprised. Horrified when she realized whose money had secured the date. I thought Rachel had power of attorney, she had whispered. She doesn't. Then this isn't just a mistake. No, I said. It's a pattern. Back in the lobby, Dad looked like he was about to step between us, but then something in his posture shifted. A calculation. Not guilt. Not anger. Self-preservation. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried someone else might see. He turned to the hostess. Is there any way we can? She shook her head. The venue's booked now. Another client filled the slot. You gave our space away? Rachel hissed. No, I said. I returned it to the system. It wasn't yours to begin with. Then I opened my binder, pulled out a single sheet, and handed it to Mom. What's this? The breakdown, I said. Itemized. With timestamps. Everything purchased. Everything signed. Everything stolen. You didn't have to do this here, Mom said. I looked her in the eye. That's exactly why it had to be here. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her fingers curled around the page like it might burn her. I turned to Rachel. You called me too poor to attend. And then you spent my money pretending. You were generous. She said nothing. I let the silence do the rest. People were watching now. Not everyone. Just enough. Rachel's voice cracked. We'll pay you back. I smiled. I'm sure you'll try. Then I stepped aside and let them walk past. The ballroom was dark. The candles unlit. The staff gone. A celebration built on theft, gone in a flicker. By the time they turned around, I was gone too, because the show was never about the party. It was about the moment they realized I wasn't their ghost anymore. I had returned. And this time, I brought receipts. Silence was never my weakness. It was my staging ground. The night after the non-party, after the ballroom remained dark and the guests dispersed, confused and murmuring, I went home to the quiet I'd curated over the years. A small studio apartment 2 floors above a laundromat, its walls lined with books, candles, and the type of peace that only comes from not being expected to smile on command. I sat down with a cup of ginger tea and opened my laptop. No music. No background noise. Just my screen, a blinking cursor, and an inbox already waiting to bruise. The subject lines spoke for themselves. Mom, you've gone too far. Dad, this isn't how we raised you. Rachel, hope it was worth it. I didn't open them. Not then. Instead, I opened a blank post. Not on Facebook. Not on Instagram. Too obvious. I chose Reddit. An anonymous account I'd created long ago when I needed to scream into a void without alerting the people who pretended to love me. I titled it, My sister told me I was too broke to attend our mom's party, so I let her throw it with my money, then canceled everything. And I wrote, not for pity. Not for applause. Just for clarity. I didn't use names. I laid out events. Dates. Facts. I described how the venue had been booked with my credit. How I'd found multiple fraudulent charges. How I'd been erased from the guest list of a party built on my identity. I didn't tell them what I did. I told them what they did, and then I hit post. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Morning, it had 6,000 upvotes. By noon, 24,000. By evening, people were dissecting every sentence like it was scripture. They called it satisfying, justified, cold-blooded, heroic, and then the comments shifted. I know someone just like this. My sister used my identity for loans. Took me years to crawl out. She opened a card in my name when I was in college. I thought it was my fault. My mom knew and said I was overreacting. And then the DMs came. A woman named Camila wrote, she sounds like someone I used to know. Does your sister go by Ray on Instagram? Drives a black Lexus? Works in creative direction? I didn't answer. But I looked up the profile. And it was her. A second account Rachel had made, polished, curated, detached from family. Her personal brand. The bio read, storyteller. Event architect. Empath. Empath. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the word she used the most when justifying herself. I feel people too deeply, she once told me, after bailing on paying a caterer. It's exhausting. She felt nothing. Later that evening, I got a text from my cousin Lily. We hadn't spoken in months. Lily, was that post about your sister real? Me, every word. Lily, you're not going to believe this. She sent me a screenshot. A message Rachel had sent to her a month prior. Rachel, hey, I might need to use your mailing address for a business account. Just temporarily. Nat's being difficult and I need a backup. It was dated 2 weeks before the first fraudulent charge in my name. Rachel hadn't just burned bridges. She'd built contingency plans in case I noticed. The next day, Lily emailed me more screenshots of Rachel asking for small favors, cosigns, shared accounts, name drops. She hadn't used all of them, but she'd prepared them, like matches lined in a drawer. I realized something terrifying then. Rachel didn't think she'd get caught. But worse, she thought if she did, she could charm her way out. She always had. She'd weaponized softness. Her entire life was built on a quiet campaign of smiling just enough to seem harmless while draining the people who kept her afloat. I went back to the post. It had been shared to 3 other subreddits. Screenshotted on Twitter. Someone had made a TikTok dramatic reading. My words, my pain, my planning, suddenly viral, and then a message came from someone named Aaron. No profile picture. No bio. Just a single line, she did the same to me. I still have the emails. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I typed, what happened? The reply came fast. She used my name to secure a hotel block for a corporate event she never paid for. I got stuck with the bill. She ghosted me. When? 3 years ago. Denver. She said she was rebranding. Going by a new name. Leah Preston. I stopped breathing. Preston was my mom's maiden name. Leah was Rachel's middle name. It wasn't an alias. It was an escape route. Rachel had done this before. To strangers. And possibly worse. I thanked Aaron. Asked if she'd be willing to send documentation. She did. Screenshots. Invoices. A photo of a thank you note Rachel had written her, same handwriting, same flourish at the end. A performative apology sent weeks before she vanished, the same note she'd left me last year when I found out she borrowed $2,000 from my parents for an emergency that turned out to be a spa retreat. I had the proof now. That it wasn't isolated. That it wasn't just family dynamics. It was fraud. Repeated. Polished. Intentional. I sat back and stared at the wall. This wasn't about a party, this wasn't even about me anymore. It was about a woman who built a life on charm and shadows, and who finally ran into someone willing to strike a match, and now, the smoke was starting to rise. They asked to meet. Of course they did. 3 days after the Reddit post went viral, after my inbox became a graveyard of apologies wrapped in guilt and silent phone calls stretched longer than my patience, Mom texted, just us. Dinner. No drama. I said yes. Not because I needed reconciliation, but because I needed to look them in the eye without flinching. Power isn't loud. Sometimes it's showing up, not to make peace, but to make sure no one mistakes your silence for surrender. We met at Il Vero, a quiet place they used to take us as kids when pretending to be the kind of family that dined together. Mom picked the table, back corner, soft light, where secrets stay unbothered. She smiled when I arrived like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just burned down the illusion she'd built over 3 decades. Hi, sweetheart. She said, voice velvet. I sat. Didn't return the smile. Didn't speak. Dad cleared his throat. We just want to talk. They ordered wine. I declined. They offered bread. I declined. I wasn't there to be softened. Mom started first, naturally. Your sister made a mistake. She said it like Rachel had spilled juice on the carpet. Like this wasn't years of identity misuse, deceit, and erasure. She didn't mean to. She did, I said, cutting in, voice low. She meant every part. The name on the reservation. The charges. The absence of mine on the guest list. She meant that. Mom exhaled. You've always been so precise. I let the word hang between us. Precise. Like it was an insult. Like discipline and memory were flaws. I read your post, Dad said. You really aired it all. I looked at him. Did I lie? He said nothing. I just think, Mom offered gently, there was a better way. For who? Again, silence. Then I pulled the envelope from my bag. Not thick, not dramatic. One sheet, printed on legal letterhead. I laid it between them. Like a final course. What's this? Dad asked. Notice of intent, I said. To file for identity theft. 3 separate fraudulent accounts opened under my name in the last 6 months. One of them linked to your address. Another traced to a device registered to Rachel. The bank has already launched internal investigation procedures. This is just a formality. You wouldn't, Mom said, eyes wide now. Not your own sister. You mean the sister who used my credit to fake her generosity while locking me out of my own family? She's struggling. No, I said. She's dangerous. The air cracked then. No plates shattered. No voices rose. But the tremor was real. They hadn't come to make peace. They came to contain fallout. Rachel was hemorrhaging status, and I was holding the match. Dad's tone hardened. You'd take legal action against Blood? Blood, I said, doesn't justify theft. She's your family. She's a liability. It was Mom who blinked first. She cried the night of the party, she said softly, as if that closed the argument. So did I replied. But mine wasn't for show. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mom reached across the table, not to grab me, but the envelope. She read the heading. Her fingers trembled. Then something changed. You don't have to do this, she said. Quietly. We can fix it. Talk to Rachel. I'll make her apologize. Publicly, if you want. No, I'll have her pay you back. I don't want repayment, I said. I want accountability. Dad sat straighter. You've made your point. I'm not finished. His eyes narrowed. You're being vindictive. No, I said calmly. I'm being clear. They didn't understand. Still. They thought this was about the money. About embarrassment. About a cancelled dinner, but it was about the ledger I'd kept for years, the one with invisible ink. The favors, the missed birthdays, the drained accounts, the moments I stepped aside so Rachel could shine and they could call it balance. This was the bill. And it had finally come due then, just as the check arrived. Mom leaned in again. Is this really worth destroying your relationship with your sister? I smiled. Not wide. Just enough. It was already destroyed. I'm just making sure the wreckage is no longer my responsibility. We left separately. No hugs. No, we'll talk soon. Just space. The next morning, I checked my email. There was one message, sent at 2:11 a.m. No subject. Just a PDF attachment. An invoice. From the venue, paid in full. By Rachel, with a note, for what it's worth. I didn't respond, because by then, worth was something I finally understood, and it was never supposed to be hers to define. By the third week, the silence became heavy. Not the kind that signals peace, but the kind that tastes like denial. I didn't hear from Rachel again. Not directly. But I heard enough. She deleted her secondary Instagram account, the one she used to curate her creative director persona, and scrubbed half her LinkedIn endorsements. Her brand collaborations disappeared overnight. Someone had started asking questions, and for once, they weren't mine. The post hadn't just gone viral. It had multiplied. Clipped, quoted, interpreted. 1,000 strangers adding voice to a scream I'd kept in my throat for years. Most of them didn't know me. They didn't need to. They knew her type, but even I didn't expect what came next. On a Thursday morning, I received an email from a burner account. No subject. 1. Sentence. Check the employee complaints against Frey & Company. I knew the name. Rachel's latest job, a boutique branding agency run by trust fund creatives who thought ethics were aesthetic. I clicked the link included in the message, which led to a Glassdoor review titled, "She Ruined My Credit and My Confidence." The review told the story of a woman working under a department head named Leah Preston, who had convinced her to jointly book a series of vendor contracts under her name to help streamline workflow. The contracts defaulted. The bills came due. And Rachel, or rather, Leah, vanished from the agency 3 months later. I reread the review 5 times, then I messaged the user who'd posted it. She replied in 20 minutes. Her name was Andrea. She'd worked at Frey & Company for 6 months. She had the receipts, literal PDFs of signed quotes and email threads. When I asked if she'd talked to a lawyer, she said she'd already tried. But no one wanted to touch it without confirmation of a pattern. She was one voice in a void. I thought maybe I was the only one, she typed. I told her, "You're not. And I have proof." She called me an hour later. Her voice was soft, shaky. She sounded like someone who'd been dismissed so often she started dismissing herself. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Because she counted on no one remembering," I said. "And I do." After the call, I forwarded everything to Mia. She whistled when she saw the timestamp overlap between Rachel's exit from Frey & Company and the launch of the Ember Plus Sage plan. She used the fallout window to pivot identities, Mia said. Smart. Ugly, but smart. Calculated, I corrected. Rachel had never been impulsive. She was tactical, just clumsy enough to pass as careless, just apologetic enough to pass as misunderstood. But all of it was by design. That night, I received a package.no name on the return address. Just a padded envelope with my full legal name typed out in courier font. Inside were printed documents. Contracts. Copies of Rachel's fake employment letters. A signed letter to a bank referencing our mother's maiden name, and a sticky note. She used my name too. I hope this helps. No signature. But the handwriting matched one I'd seen before, birthday cards from a girl named Olivia. Rachel's freshman roommate. The one she never spoke of. She'd said Olivia dropped out. Couldn't handle the pressure. Apparently, it was Rachel who had applied for 2 emergency credit cards under Olivia's social. I checked the date. 2012. This had been happening for over a decade. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I wasn't surprised anymore. I was confirmed. Mia took everything, the old charges, the new affidavits, the reviews, the burner messages, and compiled a formal packet for legal filing. We weren't suing yet. But we were warning, positioning, naming, and that's when Brenda wrote to me. I didn't know her. She identified herself as the aunt of someone who'd briefly been involved with your sister a few years ago. Her message was concise, professional. But what she attached was not. It was a voice memo. A recording from her niece's phone. Rachel, pleading, not crying. Not remorseful, justifying. I just moved things around, she said. It's not fraud. I know what I'm doing. It's only a problem if someone makes it one. The casualness, the calculation. Brenda ended her message with, if this helps your case, it's yours. But mostly, I just wanted someone else to know I believe you. I sat for a long time after reading that. People say revenge is a fire. But this wasn't flames, this was frost, this was clarity, this was watching the story she wrote with my name start to collapse under their own weight. She thought no one would compare timelines. No one would compare names. But people like Rachel. Forget one thing, they might be the common denominator, but victims find each other, and when they do, everything changes. The envelope was pale yellow. Unmarked. No return address. Thin enough to fold, thick enough to mean something. I found it wedged between the bills and my mailbox one Sunday morning. There was no ceremony, no tracking slip, no signature. Just a single piece of paper inside, lined in blue ink. I recognized the handwriting before I read a word. Rachel's cursive had always been meticulous, loops too tight, slants too sharp. She practiced it in middle school like it would become currency, and in a way, it had. When charm failed, her handwriting stepped in. A soft script for hard truths. Natalie, I'm sorry. I never thought it would go this far. I was just scared. Of being average. Of not being special. I didn't mean to hurt you. That was it. No details. No admission of what she'd done. Just fear. A flimsy thread begging for sympathy. I folded the letter in half, not out of care, but to keep my fingers from ripping it in two. I didn't reply. Instead, I placed it in a folder labeled Intentions, a collection of half-baked apologies, veiled threats, and empty promises I'd gathered over the years. It joined a note from Mom that read, she's doing her best, and a voicemail from Dad saying, you're taking this too personally. They all went in the same folder. I checked my phone. My lawyer Mia had messaged, got another call. Former colleague of your sister. Wants to talk. I called back. The woman's name was Lauren. She had worked at a pop-up design firm Rachel had consulted for under the alias Leah Preston. Lauren had been tasked with organizing a large-scale event, only to discover, at the 11th hour, that the venue had never been paid. Rachel, Leah, had ghosted the team days before the event. I covered the deposit myself, Lauren said. I was afraid of getting sued. I thought I messed up. I asked her what made her reach out now. You, she said. Your post. I thought I was crazy. Turns out I was just first. It was a line I would hear again, from Camila, from Aaron, from Olivia. Eventually, though she never signed her name, the women Rachel had used all sounded the same when they talked, cautious, ashamed, exhausted. Some were friends. Some weren't. One had dated her. One had tried to file a report and had been told, it's not strong enough. But together? Together, we were undeniable. Mia compiled every testimony. She structured a timeline that stretched years. It painted Rachel not as a messy sister, not as a girl who made mistakes, but as a pattern. A strategy. A con built on borrowed faces and misused trust. I reviewed it twice, then once more. Do you want to send it in? Mia asked. I didn't answer right away. Because that question, do you want to? Was the first time in years someone had asked what I needed, not what I owed. That same evening, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left one. Not long. Measured, as always, we all make bad choices. She's paying the price. But you don't have to make it worse. She still thought I was capable of mercy. She still didn't understand this wasn't vengeance, this was containment. 2 days later, Rachel texted, you win. 2 words. No punctuation. No context. No follow-up. I turned the screen off. I didn't need it. The win wasn't in the apology. It was in the proof. The ledger was full now. The patterns aligned. The aliases collapsed, but just when I thought the story was nearing its end, when I felt that rare, foreign sense of resolution, the final shift came. A knock at my door. Unannounced. Sharp. When I opened it, a man stood there. Late 30s. Worn suit. Kind eyes. He held out his hand. My name's Kevin. I think we need to talk. Kevin. I knew the name. Rachel's ex-fiancé, the one she said cheated. The one who emotionally abused her, according to the stories she used to tell over wine, when she wanted me to see her as vulnerable, not dangerous. He didn't look dangerous. He looked exhausted. She used my identity to secure the lease for a condo, he said. Said it was temporary. She never paid. I only found out after she left. And now I'm stuck with collections. He paused, then added, she said you were the problem. I believed her. I didn't say anything. Not at first, then I stepped aside and let him in, because this wasn't about vindication. It was about gravity, and how far the weight of silence can fall before someone finally names it. I didn't expect them to show up. But deep down, some part of me had been rehearsing for it. It was a Sunday afternoon, a week after Kevin sat on my couch and told me everything, how Rachel had forged his signature, defaulted on payments, then ghosted while claiming I was the one who ruined her life. He looked like a man who'd stopped asking why and started counting costs. He left me with a folder of legal letters and one sentence that stuck: she only wins when no one talks. Now, standing in front of me, were three people who hadn't talked in weeks: Mom, Dad, Rachel. They weren't dramatic about it. No pounding on my door, no screaming. Just a knock. 3 controlled taps. When I opened it, Rachel didn't speak first. That alone was disorienting. It was Mom, Natalie. She said, carefully composed, voice polished to a false warmth. Can we come in? I stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind me. If this was going to happen, it would happen on neutral ground. Not in my home. Not where my boundaries lived. I think we should talk, Dad said, quieter than usual, like he already sensed it wouldn't matter. I looked at all 3 of them. Rachel's eyes were glassy, but dry. No makeup. Hair tied back. A version of her I hadn't seen since high school, stripped of armor, but still calculating. I didn't answer. I waited. Mom took that as permission. She's lost her job. She said. She's been staying with us. She hasn't gone out in days. She told me you would listen, Dad added. That maybe there was still a way to what? I said. Make this disappear? Rachel's voice came then. Almost a whisper. I just wanted to explain. I turned to her, arms folded. Explain what? I messed up. I panicked. I thought if I could make Mom's party perfect, if I could fix things for once. I raised a hand. Don't pitch this as redemption. You didn't use my name to fix things. You used it because it was easy. Because you thought I'd stay quiet like always. She didn't deny it. Mom stepped in. She finally admitted everything. To us. That matters. Does it? We're family. There it was again. The word they only used when it suited them. Family. Like a spell that could erase years of decay. Like it meant something without the weight of accountability. I looked at Dad. Did you know? About the second account? The one tied to your phone number? His silence was an answer. Rachel's gaze flicked toward him, not surprised. Resigned. Like she had already factored his betrayal in and decided it was worth the risk. That's when I knew she'd used them, too. Not as victims. As buffers. Shields. Pawns. And they let her. You said I ruined her, I said to Mom. When she cried in front of the guests, when people found out the dinner was cancelled, you blamed me. But what was I supposed to do? Thank her for stealing my name? She didn't understand. She did, I cut in. You're the ones who didn't. Dad shifted uncomfortably. You could have come to us. I did. For years. Every favor. Every check. Every time I picked up the pieces. I turned to Rachel, and you always called it help. Until I said no. Then I was selfish. Rachel's lips parted, but she said nothing. Then Mom played her final card. She's your sister. No, I said. She's a con artist who knew she'd never face consequences as long as you stood in front of her. Her face cracked, just a little. But she recovered. She apologized, she said. I smiled, slow and tired, and I'm sure that felt like enough. To you. I pulled a folded letter from my coat pocket, the original copy of the apology Rachel had mailed. I held it up. Then ripped it in half. Then again, then let the pieces fall at their feet. That was the apology. That was the redemption. Now it was dust. Rachel flinched. Not because I destroyed it. But because she realized, maybe for the first time, that it wouldn't buy her anything. You don't mean this, Dad muttered. You're angry. No, I said. I'm done. I turned to unlock the door, paused, then looked over my shoulder. I used to think silence was love. That giving without asking, absorbing the hits without complaint, that was what family was. And now? Mom asked, a challenge. Now I know silence is what you ask of people you want to keep using. I opened the door and stepped back inside. They didn't follow. I locked it, and for the first time, the silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like peace. I expected nothing. Not apologies, not hugs, not even peace. But I stood at my front. Door anyway, lighting the last candles in my new apartment, small, sunlit, and wholly mine. For months had passed since the Ember Plus Sage cancellation. For months since I detonated the ledger. For months since I started living on terms I set. I'd reopened the company I once thought I'd lost, taken on freelance work, and surrounded myself with people who saw me, not what I could provide. That night, the phone rang. It was Mom. I listened to the voicemail. "Natalie, you've proven your point. Please come home." I didn't reply. Then went to sleep. The next morning, an envelope slipped under my door, no stamp, no return address. I opened it to find an $8,000 check. The exact total of the charges Rachel had made in my name. A sticky note read, "She confessed. We know you deserve it." I looked at it, then walked straight to my shredder. I didn't need their money. I needed my boundaries intact. Later that afternoon, Rachel showed up at my door, unscheduled. No ring. Just the gate buzzing, followed by hesitant footsteps. I opened the door. She looked broken, hollowed. "Natalie, please, give me a chance." She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for a do-over. I stepped aside, sat at my kitchen table, and gestured to a single chair. She sat, tense. I said, "This isn't about me anymore." Her eyes darted, searching. "It's about what you built while you thought no one was watching." Her voice cracked. "I lost everything." She spread her hands. "I need help." I fired one question. "Who's standing here, Rachel?" She blinked. I repeated, "You've taken and borrowed and stolen more than money. You built your identity on other names. Who are you without that?" Her face closed. "I don't know." I sighed. "Then, you need to find out alone." I stood, walked to the shredder, emptied the tray, paper and proof. "I'll help you if you decide to rebuild with truth." I paused. "But only if you hold yourself accountable." She opened her mouth, then didn't. I closed the door. I didn't feel triumphant. Not even relieved. I felt available. Available. To live without anchors weighted by betrayal. Later, I went into the balcony and burned the last letters, birthday cards, empty apologies, faded photos. I watched the flames sharpen their edges, trusting that what burned away would never burn me again. This story isn't just my story. It's a mirror. How many of us have been the quiet backbone, giving, forgiving, being told that love means sacrifice? And how many of us silently swallowed betrayal until the weight cracked something delicate inside? If there's one lesson here, it's this: your name is your boundary. Not just what people call you, but the person you decide to be, the respect you demand, and the values you keep. Let it not be borrowed by others, manipulated, or erased. It's not vengeance I teach here. It's clarity. It's choice. It's the strength of being silent until the ground is set for your stand. To speak when the time is right, backed by facts, integrity, and the unwavering truth of your own identity. In your life, at work, at home, with friends, ask yourself, are they borrowing your name, your energy, your finances, your identity? If it feels like giving until you disappear, that's the moment to pause. Gather your documents. Write your story. Hold your silence until it becomes strategy. Then, speak. This strength, is your power. Own it. If this has resonated with you, if it's cracked open something inside you, please subscribe. Your support fuels stories that matter, stories of boundary, rebirth, and the quiet fire that turns betrayal into freedom. Let's keep that fire alive, together.